The road home continued on for what seemed like forever. It took so long to get home due to his mother wanting to avoid passing the site of the crash. When the surrounding gave into a familiar neighborhood, they had both been more than ready to get out of the car and step back into their own home. It was an older neighborhood with quaint little houses, all next to each other. The car drove into the front of a little blue house and white window panes. They both quickly noticed the old vehicle that parked in front of the house, and the familiar figure who stood out in the driveway. Toby felt automatic anger and frustration take over him at the sight of his father who wasn't there. His mother pulled the car up into the driveway beside him before turning off the engine, preparing to step out and face her husband. "Why is he here?" Toby said quietly as he looked back at his mother, who reached to the door. "He's your father, Toby. He's here because he wants to see you," his mother responded, with the monotone voice trying to sound less shaky. Yet he couldn't have driven up to the hospital to see Lara before she died. Toby narrowed his eyes at the window. "He was drunk that night, honey. He couldn't drive." "Yeah, when he's not." Toby pushed open the door before his mother and stumbled out onto the driveway, where he met his father's gaze before looking down at his feet with a stern impression. His mother stepped out behind him and met her husband's eyes before walking out around the car. His father opened up his arm, expecting a hug from his wife, but she walked past him and put her arm around Toby's shoulder and influenced him to begin walking outside. "Connie," her husband began to say under a raspberry's voice. "What? No welcome hug, huh?" She ignored her husband's obnoxious words. He and walked past him, her son under her arm. "Hey, he's 16. He can walk by himself." His father began to follow them. "He's 17. Connie glared back at him before opening the door to the house and stepping inside. Toby, why don't we get you into your room and rest, okay? I'll come and get you when dinner's ready." "No, I'm 16. I can walk by myself," Toby said sarcastically, and glared back at his father stumbling up the small staircase and turning into his room, where he slammed the door violently. His little room didn't have much in it, just a small bed, a dresser, and a window. And his wall had a few framed pictures of his family back when they were a family, before his father became an alcoholic and acted violently towards the rest of his family. Toby remembered when he was arguing with his mother and he grabbed her by the hair and shoved her to the floor, and when Lara had tried to break it up, he pushed her and she hit her back on the corner of the kitchen counter. Toby could never forgive him for what he did to his mother and sister. Never. Toby didn't care how much his father beat him down. He couldn't feel it anyway. What did he care about? That was how he intentionally hurt the only two people he cared about. And when he was waiting in the hospital, here where his sister took her last few breaths, the only person who didn't rush there was his dad. Toby stood by the window and looked out into the street. He could have sworn he saw things on the corner of his eye, but he quickly finished the medication he had been put on. When dinner time had come around, and his mother called up to him, Toby came down the stairs. He hesitantly sat down at the table across from his father, and in between his mother and an empty chair. It was quite as his parents picked at their food, but Toby refused to eat. Instead, he just watched his dad with a blank stare. His mother caught onto his stare towards his father, and elbowed beside him. Toby took over her slightly and looked down at his uneaten food, in which he did not touch. Toby laid in bed. He pulled his covers on his head and stared at the window. He was tired, but there was no way he would fall asleep. He couldn't. There was too much to think about. He had been debating on whether or not to follow his mother's direction and forgive his father, or continue holding a grudge with his boiling hatred. He heard his door creak open, and his mother padded into the room and sat on the bed next to him. She reached over and rubbed his back, which had been turned to her. Well, I have to end it here, so yeah.